Reconsider Christ podcast provides real-life examples on how Christ works to interact with our lives. Our guests paint on the canvas of life their stories of joy, heartache, struggle, and victory. You will learn more about the true nature of Christ, for it is time to reconsider Christ. Brig Sorber, former CEO of Two Men and a Truck, is driven, passionate, and hungry to learn. These characteristics pushed him to start working and making money by age 10. Mowing lawns, Brig fell in love with freedom of having your own money. Mowing turned into odd jobs of moving stuff, using a well-worn truck. Brig kept pushing, kept learning, and soon was very successful with what was now named Two Men and a Truck. Also, married to a beautiful woman, 3 great kids, and a nice home, and an Audi, had Brig thinking there was nothing more to achieve. At this point, Brig realized something was wrong, and after a desperate year-long search, found the answer. Brig's new book, Moving Forward, A Stickman's Journey for Hope and Meaning, gives all the details behind today's conversation. Well, hello, Brig. It's so great to have you on the podcast today with us.
Thank you so much, Gene. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you for asking me.
And I think, like I told you in one of our previous conversations, you have made me smile over the years because every time I see a Two Men in a truck, I just say that's the height of American capitalism. And then it's a pleasure to really get to know the guy behind it and the family story. And so thank you for your time.
Oh, absolutely. It's an honor. And I'll tell you right off the bat, we didn't think we were going to start something so big, you know.
Exactly. That's usually what it is.
You jump in a truck and you pound it out, you grind it out, and before you know it, your area of influence increased a little bit, and it just kept going. So I don't know, our family feels very blessed, and it is interesting for me even to be in different parts of the country and see those trucks.
Yes, I bet so. That's great. Well, the way we do our podcast is we kind of start with the early days and work forward. What I'm excited about in the story that you'll be telling today is that you became a Christian, in essence, after you were an adult and had started the business and Christ and your relationship started growing at that time. But I love the childhood and college days, so typical of many people. I think they will relate. But tell me about the early days of your childhood. There was, the heartache of divorce in your family, you and your brother feeling some responsibilities and getting out and hustling for jobs. So talk us a little bit through that childhood time.
Yeah, absolutely. My parents were hardworking. They married young in their early 20s and started out really blue collar. They were grinders. They worked hard. We didn't have not really faith-based, did not go to church, but, it was a good family looking back, how hard they worked. And I think that rubbed off on us kids. And, we wanted to be successful as our parents were. And they worked us up from the blue collar up to the upper middle class before they divorced. And so all of us kids, we all worked. My sister, Melanie, worked at a young age, my brother, John, and myself. And for me, it was, mowing lawns before we could even drive cars. We used to haul them behind our bikes, our lawnmowers. And there was some colossal crashes on the road when somebody rode their bike up on somebody else's lawnmower. You can imagine that.
Yes.
So, but we were grinders. We worked hard. My friends were very close to me when I was younger. Because my parents, they did work hard, but I liked the cohesiveness of my friends' families. And so I kind of gravitated towards that. And especially after my parents got divorced. And so even my friends and their families had an influence on my life.
That's really great. And then in high school, you buy a truck.
Yeah, it was actually my uncle Norm bought a 66 Ford pickup truck for I think like $250 from Michigan State University. It was an old ag truck. And then my dad bought it from him for $200. And my dad gave it to me. I asked him, I said, Dad, can I have this truck? Because I didn't have a car to drive. And he said, yeah, go ahead. And so I took it. I mean, Gene, this thing had a hole in the floor. And by your left foot, so I could watch the road race by as I'm going down the road. But what it allowed me to do and my friends was to load our lawnmowers in the back. And now we're driving our lawnmowers to different places. And we were able to get more jobs. We started doing hauling jobs in the back of that truck. Anything that we could stick in that old truck, we'd haul to the dump. And so, you know, a lot of people ask, where did two-man trucks start? And you know, it's like a river. You know, where does a river start? I mean, there's so many tributaries that start a river, right? That was one of the tributaries. You know, my brother, he later got involved after I moved on. He did the same thing with one of his friends in his friend's pickup truck. The business never would have went anywhere if it wasn't for my mom, Mary Ellen Sheets, who actually, you know, she's the one that franchised the business. She incorporated the business in 1985, and then she franchised it in 89. My sister came in, Melanie Bergeron, who doesn't get a lot of, people don't know a lot about her in the business, but she was really the first president to take over after my mom, and she took it to a whole nother level. So, you know, where the business started is kind of a tributary of many different people working hard and getting it off and running. So it looked like a trickle that turned into a creek that turned into a river. If that makes,
you know, and that's really cool because you know, during that time there were a lot of transitions in the business, and your family was able to transition through those and stay cohesive and stay together, and sometimes that's very difficult to do. So now your mom, you know, she's seen you guys driving around in a truck. I believe you're off in college now when she decides that's a business she wants to start. Is that correct?
She fell in love with it. I mean, when we were running it, we ran it off our kitchen table, and it would either be my brother and I, or my brother and his friends, or me and my friends, whatever. It's a combination. But my mom always watched it, and she always was curious, you know. And so it was my mom. We called it Men at Work Movers, and I believe my brother named it that, Men at Work Movers. First ad read Men at Work Movers, and underneath that, 2 men in a truck, $25 an hour was our first ad. And it was our mom that said, hey, drop Men at Work Movers and call yourselves what you are, 2 men in a truck. So that's where our name came from.
Yeah.
And she took a napkin and a Sharpie marker, and she drew a cartoon truck with 2 stickmen in it, and she put it on an old candy dish that belonged to my great aunt. And that was where we would put our advertising money. So Gene, every job we did, we put $3 into that candy dish, and that was ad money. So my mom drew this little cartoon logo on there, and what would happen later is that would be the logo that, or you see on all of our trucks nationwide. And so it's really funny. So always listen to your mom, you know.
Exactly.
I fell in love with it. And then when John and I went off to school, the calls continued to come in, and that's when she called and said, hey, can I hire a couple of guys and keep this thing going? And we just thought it was a wonderful idea. And yeah, so it wasn't for my mom, you know, I wouldn't be here talking with you right now. She really did this when she was 47 years old and divorced.
That's amazing.
So, you know, it goes to show you just never know when opportunity comes. You might think I'm too old for it. No, you got to open your eyes to it. You know?
That's right. It's right. Now, so you're in high school, good looking guy, got jobs. A couple of parents are saying to their daughters, that guy's going to be a millionaire because he works so hard.
Yeah.
So where are you in Christ? Is Christ in the pickup bed of the truck? Is he even on the truck with you?
No.
Where is he?
No, not really. You know what? Looking back on it, Gene, he really wasn't there. Looking back on it, he was there. He knew exactly where Brig Sorber was. He knew where he needed to be, but Brig Sorber did not know anything about Christ, because I take a look at where I could have went south and things could have went bad in so many ways. And there was so many just in time saves in my life that I know that Christ had me by the hand back then. He did. I just didn't realize it. And that's really when I started to mature as a Christian, is when I started looking back and going like, oh my gosh, I was saved there and I was saved here, until he got me to a point where maybe I was mature enough to actually see it.
I appreciate what you said about when you look back, you see how Jesus was there and Christ was taking care of you along the way to get you to a certain point. And almost every podcast, that's exactly what people say when they look back then and see. And so one of those big saves was, you're a freshman in college. This is pre-Fran. Okay, so pre-Fran, your now wife. There's that freshman year. Kind of walk me through that. What's going on?
Well, my freshman year, and I was never a student. And I graduated, went to Northern Michigan University, and just trying to find my place. And I really didn't even know what I wanted to do. You know, I got into forestry because it's like, I like the woods. That's, you know, I was a kid. So really just kind of trying to find my place. And first semester I did fine. Second semester I really flagged, and it was really, really difficult. And I really struggled through school, just trying to find myself. And it was really important for me to belong to a group. I worked better in groups. My high school friends are very close to me. They were all gone to their own colleges. And so, you know, you try to hook up with certain people. And, you know, I really hooked up with a group that was, you know, they were really into partying. Their parents were wealthy, so they had money. They would do, you know, they would smoke pot, they would do a little bit of cocaine. And I started to hang with that crowd a little bit. But it really brought me down, and I really didn't like it. And I was just really, really struggling with that. I could feel myself going into a dark place. And I was put on academic probation after my sophomore year. And I really just limped home knowing that I've got to make some changes. And so in the book, I talk about the rugby team that I joined, and those guys, many of them are still really good friends of mine. A little bit crazy, but they're still really good friends. And I just started hanging with these guys, and I found really a group more that I fit into, and it gave me something to. I started working out that summer. I worked the night shift at a tool and die shop as a shop blaster and a grinder, and I learned to be comfortable being alone, working the night shift. Work out during the days. So when I came back that following fall, I was in probably the best shape I'd ever been in to play rugby, and it really helped turn a corner in my life. I attacked my grades. I got off that academic probation, and I just kind of felt like I finally found control of myself. I wasn't sure what that, but you always want to live in front of that 8 ball and not behind it. And I was behind that 8 ball for those first 2 years in college, and maybe that's what you learn. If I look back on my college experience, that's probably the biggest thing that I learned in college. Wasn't all the academics. It was going through that, you know, that storming, norming, and performing in your life, and getting in front of that 8 ball and attacking opportunities. And that part really probably changed my life. That's a really good question, Gene, about that time of year. Yeah.
Thanks. So, and then it happens. A woman named Fran walks by your porch.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, she walks by, and I'm with, you know, I just joined the rugby team, and I'm with some of the rugby guys, and we're cooking out. And
now, see, that cracks me up. In Texas, you cook out on the back porch, but in the North, y'all cook out on the front porch.
Yeah. Probably because as college kids, you want to be seen, you know. So
that's right.
So we're out there, and Fran walks by with her roommate, and I just said, "Hey, you want to come over for a cookout?" And they actually turned around, and I went, "Holy cow! Someone actually listened to me." Not to mention that, a pretty girl. So they came over. They were kind of smiling, and my buddy said, "You know what, Brig? We got the grill going, but we don't have any meat." And so a friend of mine and we grabbed Fran. There was a shopping cart just by the side of the road. Of course, we're in like the student ghetto, right?
Right.
And we pick up Fran and put her in the shopping cart. We start rolling down the road. And Fran is like a little bit concerned, but a little bit laughing. And she goes, "What are we doing?" I said, we're going to the Blue Link to get hot dogs. And that was the first time I met Fran. And then we got to know each other that afternoon. And then I really, really liked her. She was beautiful. And green eyes, blonde hair, kind of quiet. And then my roommates came to get me, and they threw me in the car, and they said, "Come on, Brig, we're going to parties tonight. We have to get back and get ready." And I unrolled the window and I yelled to Fran, "I'm going to marry you someday." And she just shook her head like, that guy had too many beers. And then I didn't see her for a few months. And then I saw her at a party later that winter, and dating from there. And she was really another person I really think God put in my life to get me on the right track. She was amazing back then and is amazing now.
You know, one thing I liked in the book and where we're headed here, because definitely Fran was one of those Christ saves for you.
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
me about now. Tell me about when you went to her apartment and realized more fully who she was and how attractive that was to you.
Oh, yeah. Great question. We had a snowstorm. Northern Michigan University is on the shores of Lake Superior in Marquette, Michigan, and we get some colossal snowstorms. And every so often they would close the classes down. So this happened one day, and so I called Fran, and she said, "Let's go cross country skiing on Presque Isle." And I mean, everything was shut down, and so I managed to get over to her apartment, and I walked in, and it was, I still have to understand. I'm just getting to know Fran, and I find out she's number 12 out of 14 kids. And it's like, wow. And she shows me this picture, and I just thought it was some kind of like a class or a family reunion or something with all these pictures. She goes, "No, that's just my brothers and sisters, my mom and I." I'm like, "Do you remember all their names?" She's like, "Of course I know all their names. And I know all the names of their kids." And I went, "How could you remember all that?" And of course, now I can name all of her brothers and sisters and all the nieces and nephews. And and then I looked around, and very neat and orderly. Okay. Unlike our house, which was an absolute dump. We lived in a rugby house, so everything was filthy. Her place is neat, orderly, but everything's kind of old and worn, but neat. And I realized that Fran didn't come from, like a wealthy suburban high school, like where I came from, which would be Okemos, Michigan. She came from Ironwood, which is a little tiny old mining town on the west end of the UP. And she didn't come from a lot of money. And I found out later that, Fran's putting herself through school, working 2 or 3 different jobs. Fran's keeping herself, she is a bona fide adult, and I'm still a snotty college child, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. And that's just the way that she was. I loved her independence. Her Catholic faith was very strong. Me, it was like, yeah, whatever. As we started dating, I started going to mass with her and stuff, but I liked her quiet resolve. I liked how she took care of herself. And it was kind of like something that I wanted for myself. I wanted to be more like that. And to this day, I was the president, CEO of Two Men in a Truck, but Fran is the president, CEO of our household. It was like that when we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, and it's like that now.
Yes.
Oh, well.
So she starts showing you, living out her faith in front of you. So what are you thinking about Christ now?
I still think when I first met her, I thought, Jesus was in the church. Religion was just for weak people. That, life's hard and people need that crutch to get by. And I'll tell you, Gene, I mean, I'd look at pictures of, Jesus with kids on his lap and holding a lamb. And I'm just thinking, well, he likes animals, he likes kids, but can he really deal with the issues that we're dealing with now? And maybe Fran's a little bit weak too, and she needs this. And I just couldn't see how Jesus with a lamb draped around his shoulders, walking through the countryside, telling everybody to be good and love each other could really, what's that, But Fran's resolve kept me from just completely throwing it away. Because you have to understand, Gene, at this time in my life, you got to make it on your own. That's where I thought. I did think there was a God out there, but I thought he was more of a demanding God, a God I prove my worth to, a God that, would rain hellfire on bad people, expected a strong work ethic. You got to prove yourself. And so that's kind of where I was at that time. So I wasn't denying faith. I just thought it was a bit weak. Now, I will tell you this. When I started going to mass with Fran, I started noticing some green and gold rugby coats that were at mass. I'm going like, wow, some of my rugby brothers are going to church. I didn't know that. And I would see some of the people that I had in class that I looked up to that were at mass. So it started to dispel that, but I still was kind of in a wash,
Yeah, yeah. And then thank you for sharing that, because I know where we're headed later on in your life, where you basically turn 180 degrees from wimpy Jesus and demanding God to a totally new perspective. And we'll get to that. So thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing at this level. So then Fran, so mobile phones weren't around yet, but Fran comes over and says, we got to talk.
Yeah. Oh my God.
The talk.
Yeah. The talk. I remember it like it happened yesterday. I mean, you have to, this, we're still kids, right? We're in college. We're in at my house with my roommates, and Christmas, it was Christmas time. We were watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I'll never forget this. And, we had Cornelius, running away from the abominable snowman, and Fran's like, I need to talk to you. So we went in my room, and it's not that important, but it is. It's like, I could hear the Rudolph thing going on in the other room, and Fran shakes me into adulthood and tells me that she's pregnant. And it's like, it was a huge in my life. And it was like, whoa. And so I'm just sitting there looking at her, and she goes, I just want you to know that I'm telling you this because I'm keeping this baby no matter what. And you do not have to marry me, and I will be fine. And I'll tell you, Gene, I fell in love with her 5 times more, because that is what I expected. That's the kind of answer that Fran would give. And I knew she would be fine. And it's like, Fran, let's get married. It would have happened anyway. You know it. And she goes, I do not want us to get married over this. And I pleaded with her, and she finally decided, let's get married. It was a very hard time. I remember thinking to myself, I'm a man. I can outwork anybody, and I'm going to bring up this family. Looking back, Fran was going to have a baby, and she had a child, which was me. I mean, it took a couple of years. It took probably 5 years for me to snap out of it.
Yes. So walk us through those first few years of your marriage, because most people, not knowing your story or have read your book, would think, oh, well, hey, you just went back to mama, and she had a place for you in the business, and y'all start building the business. You got a little house over here. Everything's cool. Got the baby daughter. It's so lovely.
Gosh, yeah.
Your life was so easy, Brig. Tell them how you had to white knuckle the steering wheel and take off.
The first house that we bought, you'll crack up, Gene. So it was a $15,000 house up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Not a 50, 15, 15. And we bought this thing. It was an abandoned house that a young couple tried to fix up, and they gave up on it. And so the bank just basically gave it to us for $15,000. It was an absolute hellhole. I don't know why we did it. We had a lot of animals. They were not domesticated. I had to chase out everything out of that house. The roof leaked, everything. Fran and I lived in that house, and it was kind of like that movie, It's a Wonderful Life. We slowly worked on that house and put a new roof, new windows, and we just did it over time. And again, that was in our 20s, and it was a very rough time, but it was like, you learn to appreciate the small things in life. How many times do people they lose hope because they're watching commercials and having people tell them what success looks like, what success feels like. And they go, I'll never feel that. I'll never see that. I'm hopeless. It's like, don't listen to that crap. That old house, I would sit there, have a cup of coffee or maybe a beer, and stare at a new window and appreciate that new window. Or, it's a new door, or a spot in the house that leaked forever. And all of a sudden during a storm, I'd go and look at it. It was not leaking. Those are the small steps that give you hope that you start getting a toehold on, and you start climbing out of that. And you just keep going like that. And that is really the essence of the book, is I want people to know is like, you can do that at any time. But if you give up, or if you take the road of least resistance, you will never feel those little bits of accomplishment that will take you to the next level. And so those times were so important.
Yeah, they certainly are. They certainly are. And so during this time, you're selling insurance, doing some other odd jobs. And if I understand correctly, we're kind of building the beginning of a successful career in insurance.
I was, yeah. You know, moving up to the Upper Peninsula, Nagani, little mining town that was my agency. And when I first started, my job was to go pick up monthly premiums for $5 a month. I'd have to go to people's houses to do that. But it taught me a lot about relationships. In that job, you are talking to people with wealth, people that are poor. You're talking with young people, old people, Asians, Blacks, Hispanics. I mean, and you get to know people. Little did I know when I initially struggled through that job was just the diamonds that I was mining of how to connect with people, how to listen, how to shut up, all those things. And I slowly started to build a nice business there. And we sold everything from life to disability, health insurance, auto, home, everything. We were the jack of all trades. And so, yeah, I learned a lot from that job. But while this was going on, my mom had franchised 2 Men in a Truck. My sister was the first franchisee in Atlanta, Georgia. And my mom started having some of the people that were interested in franchises call me up in where I lived up in Marquette just to talk to me about my thoughts of 2 Men in a Truck. And I knew everything about that business because I worked it. And then a friend of mine in the insurance, Jerry Irby, a friend of mine who was another insurance agent, we were talking about it. He said, "You should open one, Brig." I said, "Are you crazy? I can't do that. I already have this job." And he goes, "No, I can hear it in your voice." I look back on it, and again, those are whispers of God. And this is funny too, Gene. I didn't mention it in the book, but before my insurance career got better, I had enough of it, and I just wanted to leave it. And I tried to get a job selling used cars. Now you have to understand, I had my CLU, I had a lot of different designations with insurance. My boss was really good on making sure that we kept up on our education. So when I filled out this application to sell used cars, I thought this is a no-brainer. That door was shut. Nobody ever called me. I go, how could you not call me after all this sales experience and all these designations I have? Nobody would call me. I took the state of Michigan exam, to get an entry job with the state of Michigan. Door shut. They never answered it, never called me. And looking back again, Gene, God was like, "No, that is not where you're going. I'm shutting those doors. You stick your nose in that insurance business and you learn." And that's what happened. And then finally, what had happened was Fran and I talked it over. We decided to open up a 2 Men in a Truck franchise in Marquette, Michigan, which was the smallest one. And I to this day, I don't think there's a 2 Men in a Truck smaller than that one. And let me just tell you this, is people go like, "Oh, that's just a small franchise. You have one truck, you're running it out of your house." But again, God will show us the greatest things within the smallest thing, right? Because little did I know, when we had one truck and one phone ringing into our house, Fran and I were running it together. I was the customer service rep along with Fran. I did hire, I did fire, I did work on the trucks, I did drive the trucks. I worked damages that we had with customers. I worked with vendors. God was giving me every opportunity to learn from this small opportunity, that when I moved up to the next level, my area of influence grew. But God is only going to expand that area of influence if you can take care of the smaller things and the details and get ready for them. And in those things come in a travel bag, and you take those with you and you use them for the next job and then the next job. This whole thing I'm talking about, again, goes back into maybe your late teens, mostly 20s, early 30s, is don't lose the opportunity to work these jobs and to learn and to put those things, those diamonds and jewels that you've got, put them in your bag and take them to the next job.
So what's going on with you in Christ? Have you and Fran been practicing your faith in Marquette, or is it still?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I started going to church. Excuse me. I started going to church with Fran on Sundays, and I started praying to God. It's just like, okay, this is it. As Fran and I were starting to make more money, we started to support more nonprofits. God was taking care of us. we've actually fixed that old beater house into a home, and kids were doing well. Our business was doing well. And I really thought that was the program, Gene. I mean, it's like, you make more money, you give to more nonprofits, you give to the church, and God takes care of you. I can play this game all day long. So I was pretty happy about that.
So it's a barter system at that time.
It totally was, yeah. And it was like, I would pray to God, but it was more like rolling a pair of dice, oh God, if you do this for me, I'll do this. And that's not real faith. But the bottom line, what drove me was I was making more money. And for me, more money meant more freedom. And it's freedom of what I want to do. And freedom equals happiness. And so I was working my way up to that place. So everything, that to me was my faith. It doesn't even look like real faith, but in my eyes, I thought it was.
Right. You're rocking now, making money, you and God are working together, making
God's
deals.
happy. Yeah. We bought a house. It was a brick ranch house in Okemos, in a really nice neighborhood, at an in-ground swimming pool.
Oh, wow.
I went out and bought an Audi A4. I thought that was just, I wanted to look like a sophisticated business. I was successful in my mind. Mm-hmm. So, we went out and leased that car. To me, it was a very sophisticated car. I got a Frank Sinatra CD to play in it. I thought that was a sophisticated sound. I never listened to Frank Sinatra, but I thought rich people do. You and I talked about this, laughing about it, but I bought a bottle of Johnny Walker Black. I thought that was a sophisticated drink. And
yes, take us through this moment. This is something you've been waiting for and building up for. Man. It's your cigar and your
cigar. I thought when time's right, I'm there, and I thought about joining a country club where I could rub elbows with other rich guys and tell war stories about our businesses. And then one day I got home from work, and Fran and the kids were gone. Just a beautiful afternoon. And I mowed the lawn. We just put a new swimming pool liner in the pool. It just made the water look like something out of the, out of the tropics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The lights shining on it. I'll never forget it. And I went, right now, the smell of that freshly cut grass is nice and green. The pool looks great. I'm going to have that Johnny Walker Black on ice and grab that cigar and just have this moment. In my mind, I made it. I just made it. And you have to understand something too. Our business was viewed on the Oprah Winfrey Show. So I had all of our pictures were on there, and I had friends from high school and other people that I knew calling me. I just saw you on the Oprah Winfrey Show. My dad called me. Brig, I just saw you on the Oprah Winfrey Show. I went, Dad, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. The hell are you watching Oprah Winfrey for? Anyway, I thought that was hilarious. But I got to, I was sitting there, and I just felt the accolades. Money was there. I felt good. Fran and I weren't living hand to mouth like we did for so many years. I didn't talk about it, but we had a lot of people that were talking behind our back about how nasty our house was, and Brig and Fran are living in squalor. And it's just like, well, take a look at me now, And I took one sip of that whiskey, Gene, and I almost choked. It was not what I was expecting. It was, I did swallow it, but I poured the rest out my lawn, hoping it wouldn't kill my grass. And I thought, you know what? I can drink. I'll find another drink. I can drink Pink Squirrels, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I'm successful. I finished my cigar, and I thought maybe this type of living takes a while to get used to, but I made it. And little did I know, it was truly the very next day I woke up with a pit in my stomach. It was just like a feeling of despair. I think we've all felt it maybe from time to time, but this was kind of different. It was like, wow, what is this? And, I tried, I took a shower and tried to work it out. And after a couple of days, it just did not go away. Mm-hmm. And the question you have to ask yourself is, when this is happening, why is this happening? This is everything that I wanted. I've got my health. My kids are doing great in their new schools. They're making their sports teams. Fran's happy. I've got everything I want in my life. How can you not be happy? It makes no sense. And I just felt all of the energy just exhausted out of me. Even at work, which I just loved my job, it was just flat. And I finally came home. I told Fran, I went, you know what, Fran, I think I have cancer. He's like, what? I said, well, I got to have something. I go, how can you have everything you want and feel like this? This has been going on for a week. I can't shake it. And she goes, oh, you know, she kind of rolled her eyes. She goes, well, set an appointment and go see a doctor and see, you know. So I go see a doctor and he looks me over and he goes, you're actually in really good health. He goes, but you know what? Guys your age, they typically run into depression about this time. So I'm just going to give you some medication. Take this and let me know how that works for you. And I'll tell you, Gene, it was like, I'm not taking this. I mean, and I'm not knocking depression because that's a real thing. Okay. But to me, it's like, I want to get, why am I feeling like this? I understand if I felt like this for a long, long time, but how can you be so happy then not be happy? So I just didn't, you know, I didn't take the medication. And Fran said, when was the last time you worked out? And I went, oh my gosh, I haven't worked out since we moved back. Well, you got all the equipment downstairs, start working out. Maybe you can work your way out of this funk. And I went down to my workout bench and I just got ready to bench. And my arms just dropped, my hands in my face, and I just started man sobbing. And I'm not a crier, but man, I was just like, what is wrong with me, God? I just feel like, I mean, I wasn't suicidal, but I wouldn't care if I got hit by a bus, you know, one of those feelings. I said, Lord, everything I prayed for, you've given me more. And why am I feeling like this? And it was just, you know, I cleaned myself up before I went upstairs. I didn't want Fran, the kids, to see me like that. And so I was like that for a couple more days. I dragged myself into the office on a cloudy, crappy Michigan morning that was, I don't know, just rainy and kind of, it was like my whole, how I felt.
Yeah.
Turned on my computer and just to check the news before I started my day. And there's an ad about the Left Behind series of books, Tim LaHaye and that other guy. And that caught my attention because it was like, all right. Because I was still one that I needed to have somebody to pat my back to tell me that I was good. I needed that. And it was like, and what the books are about is what it would look like if Jesus came back in our lifetime right now and took all the Christians and left all the non-Christians behind. And I just went, he'd take me. I mean, Fran and I we give multitudes of dollars away to nonprofits. And I go to church on Sunday. I don't chase women around. I don't go to the bar. I was listing all these things that I'm so good at. You know, it was a wonder I could get my halo through the door, right? But it was like, I'm going to read it because I needed that stamp of approval. And another thing, it got my mind off my despair. And so when I got that book, I started reading that book at night. And it's not that the book was so wonderful, but it did get my mind off of where I was. And so it was like, imagine, Gene, having a migraine headache. And if you could do something for 40 minutes to take away the headache,
right?
Kind of what it felt like. So I was doing that at night. And then they mentioned the Bible quite a bit in the book. So I blew the dust off an old Bible that we had in the house. And I started referencing it and going like, okay, you know, the words aren't exactly the same, but yeah, it's saying this. And then I thought maybe I should read this. And so I talked with Fran about leaving the house a half hour early every morning and just reading the Bible. So I started reading the Bible in the morning. I would pray for about, 10 minutes. Just, God, help me understand this. This is really intimidating for me. And then I would read the Bible for 20 minutes. And then I would, in the evenings, I would go through that Left Behind series of books. I think there's 9 or 10 books or so. And I slowly started working my way out of the despair. Now, I'm not talking about a month. I'm not talking about 2 months. I'm talking about a year. That's how, and again, I look back and go, God, why didn't you just cure me of that? Because God goes, because Brig, you'd go right back to what you were doing. And I went, I would. So
exactly.
Anyway, and then what I realized was you need a relationship with Jesus Christ. You never had this. I mean, to me, Jesus was something that you saw peering through like a snow fence way out in the field. He's out there and you're trying to figure out what he is. You're trying to, you're judging him on religion and on all these other things, all the political stuff going on in the world. Do you really know who he is? And it's like, I don't, but I need to, because that's where I am right now. And so I went back to that same workout bench in my basement that I squirted man tears on, and it's really asked for Jesus to come in my life and just said, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Prayer is just between me and you. I'm not the sharpest tool in your spiritual shed here. I don't even know what this is supposed to look like or do. I just want you to know, Jesus, I'm reaching out to you, and I just want you to be my Lord and Savior. I am sorry for how I took for granted the faith that you've laid out there for me, how I took for granted Fran's faith, which was so strong for so many years. And I said that prayer, and I wish I could say that, there was pixie dust that fell on me, and then life was easy from there on forward. No,
Exactly.
it became harder. And I realized that I was more filthy than I realized, because once you have that, the Holy Spirit comes upon you and starts showing you different ways you're thinking, how you're treating people.
Yep.
And you slowly start working through those things. But pretty soon you start feeling a little bit better.
So about this time, you're asked to become the CEO of Two Men in a Truck, and you take over. Your faith is growing during this time, and you hit some big walls at work.
Yes. When Melanie had twins, she held the baton for a long time. She asked me to take over, which I did. God prepared me from working on those trucks to being a driver, to being a customer service rep, to being a franchisee. So now I'm president. And remember, I didn't take a single business class, but I took the classes of my past jobs, and I treated that like a college, So I did have success with that. I also, the first day, and God also was working on my faith before I became president. By the time I took that presidential role, I already had that talk with Jesus. That was already happening. What I did is I prayed Solomon's prayer about discernment and about wisdom. God, what are we going to do in your moving business today? You have to understand something too. This was like in 2006, and the recession was just starting. Mm-hmm. And our company was starting to come apart just because we'd grown so fast. We lacked a lot of the skill sets that we needed to become a big boy company. We were a scrappy, smaller company. Now we were becoming very corporate, and we had a lot of issues we were dealing with. We were hemorrhaging cash. Understand something, it was a mortgage debacle that brought about the recession in 2007. Not good when you own a moving company, right?
Nope.
Back was against the wall. We had some money. We had $3 million in, I believe, their bond securities. But I was praying to God, we're going to do in your business today. But in the back of my mind, I had that $3 million in the back of my mind. God knows where all that stuff is. He's just looking at me, kind of smirking, I think. And long story short, the banker calls up and says, because of the recession, the only way to get that money, Brig, it's not a money market account. It's a bond security account. And the only way to get to that money is through an auction. And that auction collapsed. So I don't think we'll ever see that money again. So I'm down to about $500,000 in cash now, which is nothing. During all this time, I'm taking a look at, I'm rebuilding I'm taking a look at all of our employees. I'm looking at their job descriptions, where they fall, and it was all chaos. It was all messed up. So I had to redo all those. And we had 78 employees. I ended up letting about 18 of them go. Had nothing to do with money. I just didn't know what they did. They were hardworking people, but the business grew so much. They were mostly operational people that we just kept moving up. So that, the specific skill sets, industry skill sets, and, they just weren't there. So I had to redo all that. And I prayed over that. And God said, well, you have to, he didn't say it out loud, otherwise I'd be nuts. But in my heart, he said, They've worked with you a long time. They did not cheat you. This company outgrew them. You need to severance them. It's like, Lord, I got $500,000 cash left and we're bankrupt. He didn't care. So we severanced out $260,000 of that $500,000.
Wow.
Many of those people I was able to get jobs in other places in the Lansing area. But God honored that. And I brought on some specific skill sets in IT. We didn't even have an HR department. We started that. In finance, I brought in specialists there. And they knew contracts and agreements. And they went through all of our contracts agreements. We found some really bad ones. I said, if we can legally do it, break them. But I don't want, I'm not doing anything illegal here. And that's something that our listeners need to hear too, is anything that cheat, lie, take, what you are telling God directly is, I don't need you. I will take it for myself. And trust me, it does not end well. So I'm damn sure these people looking over these agreements were doing everything right. And we did. And we ended up saving over almost $500,000 a year in bad agreements. That is how God honors you in different ways. He plays 1,000-layer chess, Gene. We don't know how to play checkers. Okay, so he can move things around to do those things. Our finance guy wrote a letter to the attorney to the state of Michigan about what happened with our money. And he said, I'll get your money back. And he did. And so that was that $3 million that came back. But when they told me that money was gone, I forgot to tell you this. I went in my office, shut the door, and I started laughing. Not as a madman, but it's like, God, you were so good. You knew that I was counting on that 3 million, not as much on you. Now, what are we going to do with your business? Because I'm done. And, God winks at us at certain times in our life. He winked at me there. But I knew we were going to be okay. I just knew it. Sure enough, this all happened. That $3 million allowed us to take and invest into our computers and into our systems. And we straightened out our franchise system. And we have just outstanding franchisees that worked with us during all that. We have, like in all cases, we have a couple whiners you have to drag along, but the majority of the leadership of the franchisees we had were they're closer than family. I mean, they're just great people, hardworking, and I trusted them. We trusted them. They trusted us. And so we got through that. And that is really where I found God in that. But again, you got to look back on that. Even the apostles did that. I mean, Jesus was telling them stuff about him coming back in 3 days. They're going like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. And then that's like, after his resurrection, they went, oh, that's what he meant. He wasn't talking about the temple. He was talking about his body. It's like, yeah, but that happens to our lives all the time. And I want to mention this too, Gene. I think that even people that say they are Christian, don't get me wrong, I'm not judging, but they go to church once a week and that's it. And it's like, do you realize what you're missing? If you really feel that Jesus opened the doors of death and there is something else after this life, if you really believe that, why wouldn't you throw everything you have at that? And why it's easy for me to say that is because I know it's like not to have it, what it's like to have it. And it's like, you will get so much more out of your relationships and out of your business if you bring everything to God. I mean, he's waiting for that. And that's when we talk about it's like where you see the switch from me is when I was ego driven, my ego drama. That's where I was before when wealth was the most important thing. My ego drama, I was the writer, the producer, the director, and played the main character in my drama. And what you have to ask yourself is, where are you going with that, Brig? Where's that going to take you? Well, look where it took me. It took me to a precipice of depression, of money means nothing. Where am I going to go with this? And by the grace of God, he showed himself to me and he said, Brig, would you like to enter the theodrama? Now, I'm stealing that from Bishop Barron, ego drama, theodrama, but I lived it. I just didn't have a name for it. Mm-hmm. Aaron had a name for it. And when I heard this thing, I almost passed out. I was so like, wow, that's exactly what happened. Theodrama was, Brig, I am the writer, the producer, the director. I'm asking you, do you want to play the part in my drama? And that's, yes, Lord, take my life and I'll live it. Now, here's the catch, is a lot of people think, oh yeah, you're just going to follow this Jesus around with a lamb draped around your shoulders, walking around the countryside, giving the peace sign to everybody. That's crap. Jesus showed me, God showed me how to run a business. And when I went into the theodrama, he opened up resources for me. And all of a sudden, I wasn't living by my own ego. And that's what happens to a lot of businesses, is they are ego driven. And how many times are you going to keep good employees? Their goal is, their whole life is to prop up your ego. That's ridiculous. Those are the people that you lose. If you play the theodrama, God's drama, put yourself second, block and tackle for your employees, find out what they need. They're not doing their job right. Don't beat them with a stick. Bring them inside and go, how can I help you? How can I block and tackle for you? This is what we need from you. We're not getting it. What can I give you to have you do that? Start there. I can't tell you how many employees I saved just from doing that. It might be just be saving their, you know what, I'd rather do this job. It's like, wow, based on what I see from you, I think you might be pretty good at that. Let's try that. Or you give them the tools that they need and they excel in their job, or in the end, it's just not a good fit. And, you know, I don't drop the God thing on everybody, but in my mind, it's like, God wants this person somewhere else. He definitely doesn't want them here. So if you're in the theodrama, you're still firing people. You know, you're still getting into heated conversations. Just make sure it's not bolstering up your own ego. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a switch, Gene. I think it's something that we work on constantly. And I think that's why we have to ask for forgiveness. We have to talk with God about, why are we making this decision? Why are we doing this? Is this the base on my ego, or is it on what you want done?
That is so true. That is so good. Now, so you get through all those struggles. Obviously, the company continues to prosper, and you're able to get to a exit strategy, as we talked about in business, and exit the company, and that's all wonderful and great. Congratulations. But in the book, you talk about there's always a new past, a new present, and a new future, because life is changing. And we just saw an example of that in what your passionate statements just then about how God had taken hold of you and what that meant. And so here we are now. You're still a young man. You're younger than I am.
Thank you.
That makes you a young man.
Next week.
Very young. You're a very young man, full of vim and vigor, a whole lifetime ahead of you. What is the new past, the new present, and the new future?
Yeah, another great question. It's a good question right now, because I'm dealing with it. As we came to this, to selling the business, I could realize that this business was getting more fast, it was getting more complicated, and it was getting bigger and bigger. I mean, you have to understand, Gene, we were, I think we did, $630 million in business last year. The last year we were in business, we did over 600,000 moves. We're doing almost 3 moves every minute of every hour of every day.
Wow.
That's how big we got. If you lined up all of our moving trucks in a row, there would be an unbroken line of over 25 miles. Back pre-COVID, we would have over 10,000 employees in the summer. It takes more sophistication, and we're a privately held company, and God was putting it on my heart, you need to move on. It's like, well, why? This is going pretty good.
Yeah, I like this.
But things start to turn sour if you don't listen. And so we put the company up, we sold it, and at first it was equivalent of like throwing a cat out the window. But lo and behold, the cat landed on its feet. Yeah. And we got it sold to a great Service Master, which is a great company. It will take franchises. We didn't take the highest bidder. We took the one that would be the best fit. Again, some of these franchises have been around as long as my youngest son. we've grown up with them. They're like family. So we want to take care of them. So, but I knew that God would have something for me. And for me, it was this book. I've been speaking at prayer breakfasts and around the country over the last 15 years or so. Not a lot, maybe 5-6 times a year. I've been being jabbed in the ribs by our president, Randy Shaka. You need to write a book. He's been telling me that for over 11 years. And I said, I don't know how to write a book. I'm a mover. And then as I started speaking, more and more people said, you need to write a book on your ideas and your thoughts. And that was God. This book is the hardest thing that I've ever done, including what I did at 2 Men in a Truck. I actually qualified and ran the Boston Marathon. It was harder than that. And it's putting everything, your heart and soul into it, and you hope and pray that it makes sense. And so now God, all he's doing is finish your book and see what happens. And I go to almost daily mass almost every day. And yesterday, God was, for some reason, I wanted to get out of mass. I'm usually not like that. He goes, would you be patient? And then that word patient stuck in my head. And he goes, you need to be patient. And so what I'm hearing now is, okay, the book is finished. You got the opportunity to read it, Gene. It comes out May 3rd. So I'm just going to be patient and see how that happens and where God sends me there.
And if I translate what you just said, my new past is former CEO of 2 Men and a Truck. My near present is finishing the book. My new future pending, and having the confidence to rest in pending, waiting for God to reveal. Because you and I are the personalities, and many others who are listening. Okay, God, we're about to finish the book. Let's go ahead and talk about the next 10 years of the future, and let's go ahead and line that out. And he keeps,
Yeah.
he doesn't work that way.
No.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah, and Gene, look, and again, if you want to see the future, take a look in your past. Did God ever drop the ball on you? Did he ever, all of a sudden, you're just sitting in a dead end alley going, what am I doing with my life? Never. Yeah. What was happening is you think you're stuck in some dead end job, grinding it out, and you're realizing you're learning stuff that you're going to be using really soon.
So Brig, thank you so much for your thoughts today and your insights. They've been wonderful, and I know they're going to be very encouraging to our audience.
I appreciate that, Gene. I appreciate the opportunity, and your questions were absolutely fresh.
Here's what I took away from Brig's comments today. Number 1, pray, pray, pray. Number 2, then keep moving and Christ will direct your steps. Number 3, keep evaluating the new past, the new present, and the new future.